Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Oil and Gas Business Builders podcast. I'm Laura Camrath, your host today, and I'm founder and CEO of Zebra Marketing Solutions. And welcome to my guest, Ken Tubman. Thank you for joining us, Ken.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So, Ken, you're the current president of the SEG, the Society of Exploration Geophysicists. And so that's really cool. We're here at NAPE, traditionally more financial and legal business related conference, and so it's really cool to see that NAPE has invited the SEG. We've got the AAPG here as well, and I know you guys, SEG and AAPG, are now partnering for the Image Conference, and of course American Association of Petroleum Geologists and the Society of Exploration Geophysicists are the more technical, scientific communities, and here we're, more of a business-related community. So, so that is pretty cool to see the partnerships, see you guys participating. Let me tell you, listeners, let me tell you a little bit about Ken. So, Ken has spent more than 35 years in the energy industry. He currently serves as chairman of the board of directors of SAExploration, a leading seismic acquisition company. He also works with multiple startup companies, serving as chairman of the advisory committee for Cloudstream Medical Imaging, advisor to RevoChem. How do you say that?
Yes, that's right. RevoChem and Xrathus. Xrathus.
Xrathus.
Yes, it's an online collaboration.
Okay, so Xrathus, which is Xrathus.
Correct.
And other companies. He has held senior positions within ConocoPhillips, including Vice President Geoscience and Reservoir Engineering, Vice President Subsurface, Veritas DGC, as Senior Vice President Veritas Hampson Russell, Vice President of Geoservices, and Marathon Oil as Vice President of Technical Innovation. He started his career with ARCO and has held various technical and management positions in the central functions and business units. A common thread through most of his career is involvement in technology delivery and development. So Ken holds a PhD in geophysics from Massachusetts Institute of Technology and a bachelor's in physics from the University of Massachusetts. Jesus, oh, you're a UMass grad.
I am a UMass
I'm
grad.
a Mount Holyoke grad.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
don't come across people from that part too often in this industry, but
so that's cool.
yeah, once in a while. I think
Hey.
in the industry, in my 35, 40, but maybe 100 years, I've come across one other graduate from UMass.
So, oh, really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, not that many.
Wow.
But you do mention NAPE and the differences, and SEG and APG and APL, the American Association of Petroleum Landmen, we've been putting this on. APL takes the lead, but together the three organizations have been putting this on for a while as a partnership, and it's a great event. As you pointed out, we are a bit more on the technical side, and so that's actually one of the advantages, to give our members a different view of the industry and a different types of interactions. And we hope we can bring some different things here. For example, yesterday, our executive director led a session on pore space and who owns the pore space. So it's a bit of a technical issue, a lot of a legal issue, and a bit of a business issue. And it was well attended and very active questioning with some people who are clearly dealing with this situation now. And the questioning went on sort of twice as long as we had anticipated.
Wow.
So it's a different perspective, and that's one of the things we get out of working with other societies, is that bringing in different perspectives, which is really good for all involved.
Yeah. So was there any consensus about who owns the pore space?
Well, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but the consensus was this is an area that needs more work. We'd like some legislative consistency. That would really help, and there's still a lot of issues that need to be resolved, because we have some governments who are trying to lay down some rules, but it's still pretty early, and some have moved ahead of others, and there's a lot of debate still. But we had three really good panelists, lawyers, who really understood the issues, and lots of good debate.
Interesting. So Ken, tell me a little bit about you. How did you? So you started your career with ARCO. How did you start in the, I mean, you came from UMass, University of Massachusetts, and Massachusetts, which, you know, I come from the same part of the world. It's not a common thing really to get into oil and gas.
Yeah, that's for sure.
From there, so
it's funny. I was just talking to someone about that. So where I went to school, no one at UMass, no one knew what the oil industry was, and I didn't either. You know, the extent of my experience with oil and gas was putting gas in my car, and I was studying physics as an undergrad, and I had a roommate who was a geologist, and I found it pretty interesting. So he advised me to take some, you know, I asked him what classes I could take to learn a bit more. Unfortunately, he suggested I start with mineralogy, which, you know, is not exactly a base level geology class, so it wasn't a smart way to start.
Oh yeah, I remember mineralogy.
Yeah, it wasn't a smart way to start. So I could do the crystal structure, but when we came to the memorizing rocks, I was kind of lost.
Oh yeah.
So I poked around a little bit, and I found a professor who was doing a bit in geophysics, and I found that interesting. So I did some things with her and had some interest, and said, well, you know, unlike today's students who seem to have it all mapped out, I said, that looks cool, I'll give it a try. So I applied to grad school, again, still not knowing about the oil industry, but got accepted into a program where now all of a sudden a lot of the funding and a lot of the activity was around oil and gas. And so then it became natural. I got onto projects after a few years, really started in borehole geophysics, sponsored by first a few companies who had specific problems, and then a consortium of 25 companies. So I suddenly got exposed to lots of different companies, lots of different activities they were doing, and then going into oil and gas became pretty natural. And haven't really looked back, and certainly haven't regretted it. So
yeah, well, that's awesome. That's good. So now you're president of the SEG. That's exciting. So, you know, I've heard a lot of buzz, just people talking about, you know, the demographics of the industry. I'm sure you see a lot of this as certainly a society president now. We've got a lot of folks who are getting towards retirement, and you know, a lot of them are the business owners, the business leaders, and the people with the experience. And you know, to me it seems like oil and gas has become kind of an unpopular industry to go into. First of all, just for PR reasons, that, you know, we get a bad rap just for obvious, you know, reasons.
right.
And then also, I think it's a little worrisome to young people, the cyclical nature of the industry, which, you know, people have different opinions on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But you know, when the industry is down, it can be a rough place to be career-wise. So what do you think about that?
Well, okay, so there's a lot there. And, you know, as for the cyclical nature of the industry, that's certainly the case. And I admit, I just take it for granted. You know, I was at ARCO for, I don't know, 16 years, for example. That's my first layoff started 6 months after I started in the industry. So it started early and it came often. ARCO was really good at sending people to other companies. But the good side of that was when ARCO finally sold to BP, we looked around and pretty much everybody left was a really strong contributor. And it was a team that had been weeded pretty strongly. And you looked around, it's like, these are people I'm going to work with anywhere. And most of those people did well and managed to stay in the industry. So although when I talk to people and they go, well, what about the ups and downs? I'm like, you know what? If you love the industry and you're doing well and you're contributing, you'll find something. Yeah. And I found that's always the case. Some people say it's not worth it and they want to leave, fine. But I've always managed to find something through the ups and downs. And when it's up, it's really good. And when it's down, yeah, that's when it really shows what you're made of. It's easy to manage when things are flowing well, and you should take pride in getting through the tough times. That's the way I look at it. As for the demographics, you know, there's too many people in our society who look like me. I think our average age is 58, and that's a problem. It's one of the things I really like about the collaboration with NAPE. At this meeting, the peak demographics, I think, is 35 to 45 or 35 to 45. That's the largest age group. It's really good. We struggle with that a little bit more in our society, but it's why we're trying to do some things we know we need to change. SEG is trying to go through a transformation now, and so what we mean by that is being more collaborative, more digital, more inclusive, and by inclusive I mean we need more younger members. We need more members from around the globe. Most of our members are outside the United States, but really what I'd like to get is more leadership, more strong voices from outside the U.S. People in the U.S. are used to speaking up. They're used to saying, well, we're local, we're going to get involved, we're going to do things, and we want to be more global in terms of that leadership. And lots of bad things out of the pandemic, but one of the good things is we're all used to Zoom and Teams and being remote. So all our board meetings are, just about all of them are remote. So I don't care where you are. You can hop on a Zoom, and that's what's happening. We've learned to schedule them early in the morning. So the people in Asia, it's not too bad for them. We have a board member who routinely dials in from Singapore. So it works. And we, one of my favorite things to say, I'm really tired of old white guys telling me what the young people want. So when I try to talk to young people and say, okay, what do you want? Tell me what you want. And we have some of them speak up. We have a few who've spoken up and said, well, you need to connect differently. I said, okay, how should we connect? And so some said, you need some online communities. I'm like, great, will you do it?
Yeah.
And we have a woman in her 30s who's now living in Canada. She immigrated there from Iran, and so she's created a great online community for us.
Wow.
And in the matter of a few months, we have about 1,000 members. It's open to anybody. Obviously, we'd love for them to join SEG, but we're just trying to make the connections. We've already looked at the demographics. It shifts way lower and way more global than our current membership. So this is the way we want to go. And so we have to adjust. And to me, the way to adjust is not for me to say this is what young people want, but for the young people to step up and take control. So we're trying to do that as much as we can. So hopefully people, old people are welcome to join also. But we have found we have to do a lot of remedial training on how to join Slack. For those. But whereas the young folks do it naturally. So
yeah. Well, that's a really good point of, focusing on community, focusing on, responding to younger people where they're used to interacting.
Yeah. And look, we take for granted we can come to NAPE and we can go to the party tonight, right?
Yeah.
Because my kids are grown and out of the house. They're not going to miss me, right? But a lot of the younger members now, they have kids at home, and if it's a trade-off, they have to go home, or they want to go home and help with the kids. And so having that party at night is not the best way to network, but they're happy to dial online afterwards. So we have to make it easy for them.
Yeah. Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, let's see, do you have any thought leaders or resources that you really follow? The Oil and Gas Business Builders podcast. I started this podcast to help serve as a resource to people who are growing businesses in oil and gas and who are looking to do business in oil and gas. Do you have any resources you recommend for people who are looking to do business?
It's a really good question. I actually, my neighbor actually runs a small business. He has a booth here. It's really cool. So I get to talk to him about his business and how things are going. But podcasts are great. I like to put my AirPods in and listen as I'm walking the dog. There's a lot of good resources. There's the Digital Wildcatters. I like your podcast. So there are a lot of great resources. But I think events like this also let people connect in different ways and get into, even in online communities, and start to ask questions and say, I have a specific question. How would you do this? And that's the kind of dialogues you can get at events like this that are really hard to do, right? But I also think that getting involved in some of our societies, whether it's AAPG, an SEG, or AAPL, that all have different perspectives to those problems, and it's a way to get involved and network in ways that you can't just do by going to a quote networking event, right? I mean, I find that what people miss sometimes is they think network is going to a party at night and exchanging business cards. But one of the things we as societies think we can offer to people coming into the industry, to me, networking is working with someone and demonstrating to them you can make a commitment and follow through on it. And when you've shown someone that, and then they need something, they know they can rely on you.
Yeah.
And societies are a great, safe way to do that. You can help. It's safe because, let's be honest, your income doesn't depend on what you do in volunteering. But it's a great way to meet people, a variety of people in different organizations, do some project, organize an event like this, organize a workshop, or put together a publication, and fulfill your commitments and learn who's there with you, and show them that you'll fulfill it, and that translates over into work areas, right? I work with people who I volunteered with. I volunteer with people I've worked with, and it's a different way to build a relationship. So that's one of the things I think we can do, and that's a resource, a little different maybe than what you were asking about. There's certainly a lot of great podcasts where you can hear people telling their story, but it's also great to have people you can tap into for you're trying to build your own story. How are you going to do that?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I guess we've got
someone's backing up.
Some sort of moving truck behind us. Sorry, listeners.
Or maybe it's a warning about what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, but that's a really good point to get involved, and I think by being involved and participating, you form relationships with people that you might not just form at a quick networking event or something, and you really get to know people, and you also learn things you might not have learned otherwise through the connections and the relationships that you make.
Yeah, and it's one thing hearing someone's story in a bio they choose to write, as opposed to being able to interactively probe that a little more. Well, what did you actually do with that, and how did you get that first position?
Right. Yeah.
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you being on the show today. Thank you for your time. I'm sure you're busy meeting everyone and networking yourself today. So it's been a pleasure talking to you and hearing about your experience. And I look forward to staying in touch.
Absolutely. I'm glad you invited me. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot.
Okay, good.
Okay.